I spent my whole life fading into the background, convincing myself I was fine being invisible. Then one unexpected moment dragged me into the spotlight, and nothing was the same. When I was a kid, I used to sit on the edge of the living room couch during birthdays, just watching my siblings unwrap their presents. My brother Jake always got the biggest boxes, remote control cars, a new bike one year, even a dog once. My sister Molly was the artist, so she got paints and easels and all that. Me? I got socks. A book, maybe. Sometimes nothing but a card. They would say things like, "You're just so low maintenance, Aaron," as if that was some kind of compliment. But low maintenance just meant forgettable. I did not kick or scream or ask for more. I nodded, smiled, and said thank you. Always thank you. Because making a fuss felt worse than being invisible. At school, it was the same story. I was the kid teachers liked because I never caused trouble, but I was never top of the class either. Nobody remembered my name after the semester ended. One time in high school, we had this big group project in history class. I did most of the work, but when we presented, someone else got all the credit. I could have spoken up. I wanted to, but I didn't. I just sat there, smiling, nodding. Good job, team. Later in life, I carried that same energy into work. Quiet guy, team player, reliable. I stayed late, helped fix other people's mistakes, trained the new hires. I was the one who filled the coffee pot when it was empty. But when bonuses rolled around, when promotions got passed out, I was never the one picked. I was not even considered. Friends? Yeah, I had some. Sort of. I was the guy they called when they needed help moving, or a ride to the airport, or someone to crash on the couch after a fight with their girlfriend. But when they planned parties, weekend trips, game nights, I was the one who saw it after the fact, scrolling past photos on social media, wondering if my invite got lost. Truth is, I got good at pretending it didn't bother me. I told myself I liked being out of the spotlight, that it was better this way, safer, cleaner, less pressure. But sometimes, late at night, when the house was quiet and the only sound was the hum of the fridge, I would ask myself, what would it feel like, just once, to be the one people noticed? Not out of pity, not as a backup plan, but really, truly noticed. I never dared to find out, until the day I had no choice. By the time I hit 30, I had built a life that was, well, stable. I had a steady job in logistics at a regional warehouse. Not flashy, but dependable. Same desk for 9 years, same morning routine. Clock in at 7, coffee by 7:15, lunch alone at 12:30 sharp. People around the office knew me as Aaron from inventory. Not Aaron who cracks jokes. Not Aaron with the great ideas. Just Aaron. The guy who fixed the broken printer even though IT was supposed to. The guy who remembered birthdays and brought in donuts when no one else did. The guy who helped others prep their presentations, only to sit in the back while they took the credit. One time, a new hire named Rachel came in fresh out of college. Eager, bubbly, had this energy that made people want to be near her. She got assigned to shadow me for her first month. I walked her through the system, explained the quirks, helped her avoid the landmines. She soaked it up like a sponge. 2 months later, she pitched one of my process improvement ideas in a team meeting. Word for word. Even used the same example I gave her. Everyone clapped. The manager, Mark, called it brilliant. I sat there with my coffee, smiling like always. Nodding. Silent. That night, as I locked up and turned off the lights, I stood alone in the break room and whispered the words I never said out loud. That was mine. The words echoed in the dark, bounced off the vending machines, and died before they reached the door. But I convinced myself, like always, that it was fine, that I did not want the attention, that being noticed meant being vulnerable, open to judgment, criticism, expectation. I told myself that being in the background meant I had control, that I was choosing this. But every so often, something would flicker. I would be sitting in a meeting, heart thumping, a great idea burning in my chest. I would open my mouth, taking a breath, ready to speak. Then someone louder would jump in. A manager would change the subject, or I would see someone glance at their phone, and I would swallow the words. Next time, I would promise myself. Next time, I will say it. But next time always felt the same as the last. One afternoon, I was refilling the copier paper when I overheard 2 coworkers in the hallway talking about an upcoming leadership program. My name came up. I held my breath. He's good, one said. Reliable. Yeah, but it doesn't really stand out, the other replied. He's not leadership material. No presence. I stayed perfectly still, one hand on the paper tray, the other gripping the edge of the copier. No presence. Like I was a lamp. Or a chair. Useful, but invisible. I went home that night, sat on my couch, and stared at the wall for almost 2 hours. No TV. No phone. Just silence. That was the first time I asked myself, not just wondered, but really asked, what would happen if I stepped forward? If I let the world see who I actually was? I had no answer. Not yet. But something was starting to shift. It happened on a Tuesday, late October. The kind of day where the air smells like damp leaves and the sun starts setting before you even finish lunch. We were swamped at work. The main system server had gone down, and everything was stuck. No one could track orders, update inventory, or access schedules. Phones were ringing nonstop. Mark, our manager, was pacing like a man with a ticking time bomb strapped to his chest. I had been through outages before. I knew exactly what to do, how to reset the local backups, how to reroute urgent requests manually, how to get the ball rolling without the system. It was not flashy, just experience. So I started fixing it. Quietly, I pulled out the dusty binder from under my desk that I had built over the years. Emergency procedures, vendor contacts, manual workarounds. Nobody ever asked for it, but I had kept it updated like some kind of habit. Like I was waiting for this day. Rachel was panicking. Kevin from tech support had locked himself in the server room, and Mark was asking the team what our options were. I cleared my throat, took a step forward, binder in hand. My heart thumped in my ears like it wanted to run for the door. Right then, Rachel spoke up. Loud, fast, nervous energy pouring out of her. She started listing off the steps I had just briefed her on 10 minutes earlier. Almost word for word. Mark clapped his hands. Perfect. Rachel, run point on this. My arm dropped. The binder felt like lead in my hand. I could have spoken up. Could have said, actually, I came up with that plan. Could have added, I trained Rachel on those exact steps this morning. But I didn't. I just nodded, backed away, and let the door close in my face. Again, that night, I sat in my car outside the warehouse, the engine off, hands on the wheel. I watched Rachel through the office window, laughing with Mark and the team. She had saved the day, as far as anyone knew. I thought about all the times I had almost stepped into the light. The near moments. The just about to says. The seconds where courage built up in my chest like a balloon, only to pop before a word could leave my lips. And the weird part? I was not angry at Rachel. Not really. She was just doing what I had trained myself never to do. Take space. Take credit. Be seen. I drove home in silence. Did not turn on the radio. Did not stop for dinner. Just pulled into my driveway and sat there, wondering how long a man could stay invisible before he stopped existing entirely. That was the first time I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. And something inside me whispered, this is not sustainable. It started with a phone call I almost ignored. It was a Wednesday evening, right after dinner. I was halfway through microwaving leftover pasta when my phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number. Normally I let those go to voicemail, but something about the area code caught my eye. Local. Could have been work. Could have been trouble. I picked it up. Aaron Spencer? A woman's voice asked. Sharp, no nonsense, like someone used to giving orders. Speaking. This is Denise Tucker from Central Logistics. We received your name from Mark Lawson, your supervisor. My heart stuttered. For a second I thought something had gone wrong. My mind went straight to worst-case scenarios, budget cuts, layoffs, complaints. But then she said something I did not expect. I am overseeing the regional operations audit next week. Your name came up as someone with deep knowledge of internal procedures. We would like you to walk us through your team's emergency protocols. I blinked, staring at the microwave clock. Sorry, what? You will be presenting at the review panel, she continued. Wednesday, 10 a.m., our HQ boardroom. Please prepare a brief on your site's contingency workflows. I had to sit down. Literally. I pulled out a kitchen chair and just lowered myself into it, like gravity had doubled. Not Rachel. Not Kevin. Not Mark. Me. For a second, I wondered if it was a mistake. If she had meant to call someone else and mixed up the names. But she repeated it, thanked me for accepting, and hung up before I could ask any questions. I sat there, phone still in my hand, the microwave beeping behind me. The smell of burnt pasta filled the kitchen, but I did not move. This was it. The moment. The fork in the road. They had asked for me. Not because I demanded it, Not because I put on a show. Just because someone had finally noticed the binder. The background work. The guy who always kept the machine running. And I had two choices. I could say nothing. Show up, keep my head down, mumble through it, fade back into the wallpaper. Or I could actually show up. Present. Speak clearly. Stand like I belonged there. Like I had something to say. But that voice in my head, the one I had trained my whole life to listen to, started whispering again. You do not do spotlight. You stay quiet. You keep things easy. Safe. I barely slept that night. But sometime around 3 a.m., lying on my back and staring at the ceiling, I made a decision. I was tired of almost. The day before the presentation, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror in a wrinkled dress shirt and tried to picture myself as someone worth listening to. It felt like pretending. I must have run through my talking points 50 times. Printed handouts, made slides, rehearsed transitions. But every time I looked up and tried to say the words out loud, my mouth went dry. My throat tightened. My reflection looked back at me like a stranger wearing my clothes. That night, I skipped dinner. Could not eat. My apartment felt smaller than usual, the walls pressing in just a little too close. I laid out everything I needed for the next morning: slacks, button-up, backup USB drive, 3 pens. And just as I was finally starting to calm down, the phone rang again. It was my mother. I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. We did not talk much. Never really had the kind of bond people write Christmas cards about. I was always the dependable one. Her words, not mine. Not affectionate. Not cruel. Just cold in that way that never quite crossed a line, but always kept you outside the door. She got right to the point. Said she had heard from Jake, my golden boy brother, that I was giving some kind of big speech at work. I had no idea how he even knew. Apparently, he had bumped into Mark at a networking event. She laughed a little and said, well, maybe all those years in the background finally paid off. It hit harder than I expected, like a slap made out of dust. You can't get mad at it, but you feel it in your lungs. I asked her why she called. She said she just wanted to check in. Then she asked me if I remembered Jake's middle school graduation. Of course I did. They threw a party with a tent in the backyard, catered food, and a framed photo slideshow. I had won the science fair that same week. Nobody noticed. You were always so good at fading into the background, she said, almost fondly, like it was a compliment. Jake needed the spotlight more than you did. She meant well, in her own warped way. But all I could think about was standing on stage tomorrow, lights on my face, no place to hide. I ended the call and sat on the couch with the lights off. Just me and the buzz of the refrigerator humming like a distant warning. And still, under all that fear, something else started to stir. Something sharper. Anger? Maybe. Not at her. Not at Jake. Not even at Rachel or Mark. At myself. For letting it go on this long. For playing dead in a life that had not even started yet. Tomorrow, they would see me. I did not know if it would go well. I did not know if my hands would shake, if my voice would crack, if I would trip over my own words. But I knew one thing for sure. I was not going to disappear again. I arrived at headquarters 45 minutes early. I had not slept. I had not eaten. I had not even had coffee because my hands were already shaking and the last thing I needed was a caffeine-induced earthquake in front of the executive board. The building was tall and glassy, one of those places where everyone wore suits that actually fit. My reflection in the lobby doors looked small, like a kid trying on his dad's clothes. I adjusted my collar 3 times before finally walking in. A receptionist greeted me. I told her my name, and she checked the schedule. You're in Conference B. 2nd floor. They're almost ready for you. Almost ready for me. That sentence alone made my chest tighten. I was not used to people waiting on me to speak. I was the guy who moved chairs. The guy who tested microphones. The guy who clapped politely while other people stood at the front of the room. But not today. I took the stairs instead of the elevator. Needed to burn off whatever was buzzing in my limbs. At the top of the stairwell, I paused. Took a breath. Reminded myself of everything I had practiced. I was ready. And then the floor beneath me shifted. Not literally, but it might as well have. Because standing outside Conference B, talking to one of the regional directors, was Rachel. She was in a sleek navy dress. Her hair curled in that way people pay for. Holding a laptop and talking confidently, like she belonged here. Like she expected to be here. I froze. She had not mentioned being involved. Mark had not told me she would be attending. And judging by the way she smiled and gestured toward the boardroom, She was not just observing. She was presenting too. My stomach turned. I stepped back, ducked into the hallway bathroom, and shut the door behind me. Locked the stall. Sat down with my head in my hands. My thoughts were racing. She is going to talk first. She is going to pitch the same plan I gave her. They are going to think she saved the day. Again, the anger surged before I could stop it. But underneath it, fear. That same old fear that maybe I had waited too long. That I had missed my window. That once again, I had walked all the way to the edge and still could not jump. I thought about walking out. Just slipping away, texting Mark later with some excuse. He would not be surprised. He probably expected it, deep down. But then, I remembered the binder. The one I had built from scratch. The one no one asked me to make. The one that had quietly kept the entire system afloat more than once. Rachel knew the script. I wrote it. But she did not own it. I did. So I stood up, wiped my hands, looked at my reflection in the mirror, pale and shaking and tired, but still standing. And I whispered to myself, go ahead and try. Then I walked out, straight toward the conference room. When I walked into the room, they were already seated. 10 people, maybe 12, all in suits, all looking down at papers, sipping coffee, checking their watches. Corporate faces, the kind that blink slow and do not smile unless someone higher up is watching. Rachel was standing near the screen, her slides already up. The title said Contingency Optimization Proposal, Rachel Baird. I took the last empty chair near the end of the table. Nobody looked up. Mark leaned over and whispered, they bumped her ahead of you. Be ready to go next. I nodded and sat there, heart pounding, palms cold, watching Rachel stand at the front of the room with perfect posture and polished words. She walked them through the protocol, the flowcharts, the proposed training module. She even used a phrase I had written in the margins of my binder. Resilience through redundancy. It was mine. No doubt about it. But I stayed quiet. I did not interrupt. Because for the first time, I felt something different. Calm. She was good. She hit every point. But she did not understand the structure the way I did. She could recite it, but she could not explain the why. Not the way I could. When she finished, there was polite applause. A few questions. Nods. A comment about solid groundwork. Then it was my turn. They called my name. Just my name. And something happened when I stood up. The fear was still there, yeah, but it was behind me now, like a dog on a leash. Barking, but no longer in control. I walked to the front and opened the binder. No slides. No clicker. Just me and the thing I had built with my own hands. And I spoke. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just honest. I talked about the breakdown last month. How the server crash almost shut down 4 sites. I told them how we handled it, step by step. I showed them the handwritten log I had kept. The paper backups. The revised routes. The human solutions that filled the digital gaps. I saw them lean forward. I saw Pen stop moving. Eyes locked on me. Not because I was flashy. Because I knew. One of the directors, a woman in a gray blazer, asked how long we had been using this protocol. I told her 3 years. Why was this never formally presented? She asked. I glanced at Mark. He looked down at his coffee. I turned back to her. Because I did not ask for credit. I just wanted it to work. She stared at me for a second, then gave a small nod. That was the moment. Right there. The first time I was not background noise. Not backup. Not filler. I was the source. And as I wrapped up, binder still open, voice steady, I saw Rachel out of the corner of my eye. She was not smiling. Not smug. She looked small. Like she had just realized the difference between knowing the plan and being the one who built it. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then someone clapped. Not polite. Not forced. Real. And just like that, the spotlight was mine. I do not remember walking back to my chair. All I remember is the heat in my chest, the kind that burns clean. Not fear. Not shame. Just this quiet sense that I had crossed some invisible line I could never uncross. For once, I did not vanish after I spoke. I stayed. People looked at me differently. Not with awe, not with envy. Just recognition. Like they were finally seeing someone who had been sitting there the whole time. When the meeting wrapped, the regional director, the one in the gray blazer, asked to speak with me privately. I followed her down the hall, still gripping my binder like a lifeline. We stepped into a small glass office. She shut the door, looked me in the eye. I do not say this lightly, she said, but what you shared today, this kind of thinking, this kind of preparation, that is what we need in leadership. I blinked. She continued. There is an opening at Central. Mid-level operations coordinator. We had a short list, but I would like to add your name. For a second, I could not even breathe. I know it is sudden, she said, but your reputation speaks for itself. Quietly, but it does. I nodded, managed to say, thank you. She told me to take the weekend and think about it. Gave me her card. Left me alone in that little room, staring at my own reflection in the glass door. On the ride back to my office, the world looked different. The floor felt sturdier under my feet. When I stepped inside the warehouse, Rachel was waiting by my desk. She had her arms folded, lips pressed tight. So, she said, you really played that well. I stared at her. What do you mean? She scoffed. You knew they would be there. You knew it would make me look like I stole your work. I shrugged. You did. She opened her mouth like she had something loaded, something sharp. But nothing came out. Because for the first time, I was not apologizing. I was not smiling to smooth it over. I was not offering her credit she had not earned. I let the silence hang. Mark walked by right then, glanced our way, and kept moving. No backup. No damage control. Just me, standing in the light. Rachel looked at me one more time, then walked off. And I sat down. For the first time in my life, the silence felt earned. I was not invisible anymore. And that scared me more than I expected. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed with the lights off, but my mind was wide awake. Not racing, not panicking, just aware. Like some part of me had finally woken up after years of sleeping with one eye open. I kept thinking about what the director said. Leadership. That word had never felt like it belonged to me. It was something other people did. People with louder voices, firmer handshakes, bigger shadows. I was the guy behind the curtain, pulling strings, patching holes, making sure nothing fell apart. But now they saw me. And it was not just the boardroom. Rachel saw me. Mark saw me. Even Jake, my brother, had texted me that afternoon. Just a one-liner. Heard you crushed it. No emoji. No sarcasm. Just 6 words I had never expected from him. And it all should have felt good. It did feel good. But underneath it, there was fear. Real fear. Because once you are seen, you can be criticized. You can be challenged. You can fail. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the floor like it had answers. And then, I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand. Pulled out something I had not looked at in years, a photo from college. I was standing in the back row, slightly off-center. A club photo, I think. Some group I helped organize, but never led. Everyone was smiling, arms around each other. I was half cropped out. You could barely see my face. Back then, I told myself that was better, that the spotlight belonged to someone else, that I preferred things that way. But staring at that photo now, I saw the lie for what it was. I had not preferred it. I had settled for it. Because being overlooked hurt less than risking rejection. Because fading into the background was safer than trying and falling short. I had been hiding my whole life. And somewhere along the way, I stopped believing I was ever supposed to be more than that. But now I knew. The scariest thing was not that no one had ever seen me. It was realizing that I had never let them. I placed the photo back in the drawer, closed it, and for the first time, I allowed myself to imagine a different kind of life. One where I stood in the frame, front and center. No apologies. No deflection. No shrinking. Just me. I took the job. Maybe that is not the most dramatic ending. No explosions. No confetti. No slow clap in a crowded room. But for me, it was everything. The Monday after I accepted, I boxed up 9 years of quiet work. Binders, notes, files I had kept just in case. People stopped by my desk one by one. Some shook my hand. Some looked surprised. A few asked how I had managed to get noticed. I just smiled and said, "Took me long enough." Mark avoided eye contact the whole day. Rachel said nothing. That was fine. I was not leaving for them. My first day at Central was weird in the way that starting over always is. New building. New faces. New pressure. They handed me a badge with my full name printed bold at the top. Aaron Spencer, Operations Coordinator. No mistaking it. No fading into a group. That first week was rough. I stumbled over names, second-guessed every email, overthought every meeting. The old voice came back a few times, the one that said, "Stay quiet, play it safe." But each time, I shut it down. Because now I knew it was a lie. I did not have to be loud. I did not have to be perfect. I just had to show up and stop hiding behind the curtain I had built for myself. One afternoon, we were in a planning session for a new site rollout. The team lead asked if anyone had thoughts on a process issue. The room went still. My hands were sweating. My heart kicked up a gear. I almost let the silence win. Almost. But then I leaned forward and said, "Yeah, I have something." And they listened. It was not a mic drop moment. Nobody applauded. But they nodded. They heard me. They added my idea to the plan. I walked out of that room taller. That night, I went home, opened my laptop, and did something I had put off for years. I clicked on a blank document and typed. Sometimes the scariest thing is not being invisible. It is realizing you were the one hiding all along. And I hit save, not because I needed anyone else to read it, but because I finally believed it. I was done with the background. I do not need the spotlight every day. I am still me, quiet, steady, not the loudest voice in the room. But I am in the room, and I am not disappearing again. Not now. Not ever.